Hey, how was that for everyone? Good. Hopefully you made some progress on that. Um, got to make it look a little better. I know like that probably wasn't anywhere near as much time that you needed, uh, but like you can always um, keep trying and working on it later. I'll go over it now. Um, I'll try to run through it. I don't know if I'll be able to get to everything, but I'll try to get through as much as I can. Um, okay, so I need to be able to share more than one screen. Okay, it's top one.
No.
I am. Okay, can y'all see me switching screens or is it like stuck on one?
No, we can see you switch.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Um, yeah, I forgot to make this responsive. Sorry about that. So if I had made it responsive, I wouldn't need to switch. But yeah, if you try to make it smaller, it messes up. I'll do better next time, I promise. But yeah, so let's start with like just trying to make this a little better. Let's start with like the nav bar. Um, Anybody want to tell me like what I can do to the nav bar to make it look better?
Make it fixed.
Say again.
Well, what I did, I put it in a fixed position.
Okay, we can do that.
As margin.
I heard margin. Okay. Anything else?
Maybe
Well,
for
margin where?
And left. What side?
Okay. Left side. Right side could use some margin too, or in this case, actually padding,
Padding,
would be
yeah,
the
padding.
better one. And then there was something else that was said. I didn't hear it.
Spacing
Where?
between like the actual tabs, like
The
instead
links?
of it being bunched together.
Cool. Yeah. Cool.
Carlos, quick
Yep.
question. Can you explain the difference between using padding and margin?
In a lot of situations, it might look like they do the same thing, but they don't. uh, there was like a funny tweet that I don't remember it, so I won't repeat it. But basically, like margin is outside, padding is inside. Um, can I?
I thought it was based off of like the border, like margin would be added on to the outside of the border, and then padding is inside the border, but like we don't recognize, like you don't always see the border, but like I thought that's how it worked.
Right. Yeah. So that's like it has to do with the box model. So if we open, let's see if I can open that up. Maybe I can show it here. So I will. So so it does have to do like where the border actually is. So essentially, so right now we have this button highlighted. This blue part inside, this is pretty much the content inside. Padding is what's around the content. But right now you see that there's 0, there's nothing. You should see like hyphens there. That means there's no padding. And then there's a 1 pixel border. And then outside of the border, there's the margin. So if, let's see here. So say for this button, if I want to add padding, then obviously I can do padding, right? And then let's say 10px. The button got bigger, right? But the button got bigger on the inside. And if we look in our like dev tools, we see that now padding is 10 pixels. So that content is still in there, still the same size. And now the padding is 10 pixels. The border is still 1 pixel, and the margin, there is no margin, right? And then we can give it margin. Let's do top. Or let's just do margin everywhere, right? It's only gonna show on the top though. Hold on, I'm gonna do something. So if we give the margin top 10 pixels, let's give it more so it can be more apparent. Let's give it 100 pixels. We see that now like the button is like way like far away from the text. That's the outside. So padding, I don't know if you can see it, but like the blue inside, that greenish looking part, padding. That yellow looking part, that's the 1px border, and then the orange part, that's the margin. That's just always how it's going to be. So if you want more space on the inside, use padding. If you want to move an element like away from something else, use margin. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Let me refresh that so we don't save that. Yeah, that was like one of the things that took me a while to like understand.
Yeah, I just use whatever works. So I start off
pretty much.
Margin, and then if that doesn't work, I'm like, oh, padding might work, and if that works, then that's what it's gonna be.
The padding saved my life though. Like wherever I need space, just use padding.
Yeah. So like padding is like a really nice trick to use if you do need some space. Just add some padding, especially if you're using something like Flexbox or something. If you're using like CSS Grid, you don't really need to do that. But yeah, so let's try to do all the things we said to the navbar. So I have it open right here. So we said padding on the left and right. So if we look at the navbar, so we have navbar, then so we have a div with the brand name, and then the UL with all the links inside of it, right? The one I want to target right now is the actual navbar, so the thing that's holding everything. So I'm just gonna go to the navbar here, right? And I am gonna add some padding on the left and right. I don't want to add padding on the top. There's different ways I can do this. I can just do like padding left and then make another one for padding right, but I feel like that's too much writing, so I want to do it in one line. So basically, I'm just gonna do 0, so that way I'm adding 0 to the top and bottom. And then on the left and right, I want to add some padding, but I do want to use my design system, right? I don't want to like pick a random number. I don't even remember the numbers I picked. Okay, so let's try 32. That looks right. I think that could look better. So I'm going to go up a little bit. So 48. And that looks better.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I noticed that you have like a 0 in front of like that 48. Like why not just put 48? Is there a reason for that? I've seen that like a few places.
Right. So if I just put 48, then it's going to add padding on top, bottom, left, right. I don't want that. I only want the padding on the left and right. So this is a shorthand syntax, which I like to use often. So the first position is top, bottom. The second position is left, right. Okay. There's like another way. There's like different sense. So you like use whatever one makes sense for you. Another one that I use often when I have to like make different ones is, let's say it's like I got to do 10px, 20, 10, 40px. This one is a little confusing if you don't know what it means, but basically it means top, right, bottom, left. So
Okay.
top, right, bottom, left. And that's another shorthand syntax if you just want to make it in one line. But I typically go with like this one, the 2-unit one. So it's like first one, again, top, bottom, second, left, right.
Right. So it spaces it evenly, right?
Right.
Like, okay, cool. Thank you.
I think there's a third one. I think it's top, bottom, and the third one is left and right, but I don't see that one used often. So that does look a little better. And we did say we wanted to add some space between these links. In this situation, we can actually use both padding or margin. It's going to solve the problem for us. So I actually already added some margin, a little bit of margin. So all we need to do is just add a little more. Too much. So I'm going to go down a little bit. That looks much better. And you see how much easier that was with the, like, if we had that strict design system. I went straight to 24. That definitely didn't look good. And I went right all the way down to 12, and that looks so much better. I didn't have to like pick any numbers in between. Another thing that I don't think anyone mentioned, but I do want that brand name to be like bolder. I do want people to see it more. So I am going to target. I actually don't have a target in here for it, so I'll just make it. So brand, and I want to make it a little more bolder, so I'm going to do font weight, and the default font weight is 400. I'm going to bump that up. Let's see what 700 looks like. That's all right.
Question. Is it bad practice to declare like bold on the word in the HTML?
I don't really see those words used anymore. You could do like bold or I don't even remember the other words.
Strong.
I think italic still works. What was that?
Like it was like bold and strong you're talking about?
Oh, yeah, strong is in the HTML, bold is in the CSS, and I think you can also use italics. But that's definitely not used. I don't think it's used, or a different version of it is used. But typically, I think it's better just to use the numbers, especially if you're using something like Google Fonts. Because when you use Google Fonts, and say if you pick, if you select a style, you can pick like all the versions that you want. So if I want 300, if I want 400, 700s, like I think it's more intuitive that way instead of using just bold, instead of using the words.
What website was that?
It was Google Fonts. I'm actually gonna open it.
Oh, the other one that you clicked by mistake. I don't know, Happy something.
Happy Hughes.
Oh, Happy Hughes. I was gonna show that to y'all in a little later.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So that looks better. The brand name does look better. I actually think we can make it a little bigger. So font size. Let's bump it up to 24 px. I like how that looks, so I'm gonna keep it that way. Boom. So this like main section here, this like hero section, what can I do to it to make it look better?
Which section?
The main section.
I think some padding.
Maybe make some of it bold and then the other words like lesser, so it's not the same size as even the button.
Prioritize the best UI UX website.
What did you say about it? Just to do what?
Like, you know how you were saying like prioritizing things?
Yeah. So I'm like emphasize it. Cool. Yeah.
Or emphasizing, yeah. So I guess emphasize the best UI UX website, and then I guess the rest of the stuff, like change the color and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. That looks good. I mean, that sounds good. And by the way, Henry, you said clockwise on the chat. Yeah, clockwise for the padding shorthand. So let's try that out. So I'm going to open up my main section here just so I can take a look at the what it looks like just in case. So main section, I have main heading, I have main subheading, and I have the main button. So let's make the main heading larger, right? So let's like go real big just to see what it looks like. It's 48. That's actually cool with me. Main subheading, I'm gonna keep it that size. Is there anything else instead of changing the size that I can do to it? So, well, I heard maybe change the color. We can do that.
For the main subheading, I actually put a break in it, like after elite.
Okay. All right, make it smaller. All right. So we can do that different ways, adding a break, adding a width. So I'm just gonna actually add a width here. I am gonna choose one of my sizes here. I don't actually know what's gonna work. I'm gonna go with 192s to see how that works. Way too small. I'm gonna bump it up to 512. Better. All right, so that's it's looking better right now. I believe someone mentioned let's change the color, so let's do that. I'll try adding this gray. So I'm gonna say color var dash C gray.
Oh, okay. Real quick. The root is just here is where you're storing your colors, and you could just grab it by declaring it on the
right. So right. So it's almost like as if I'm making global variables for my CSS here.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Maybe a little too light. I'm gonna use the gray dark. Yeah, that looks so much better. I'm gonna see if it looks better centered. So I'm gonna throw a text line in there. I actually do like how that looks. I'm gonna leave it like that. Another thing, I don't know if anyone mentioned it, but we can definitely add some space in between these things. Again, you can do this so many different ways. You can add margin. In this case, padding will work as well. I think I added, so I didn't add a height to main context. But let's see if I do this. So main content, let's see if I do space around. Ooh, wrong one, justify. Content, space around. And I'm gonna add a height to it. That's why I didn't do anything. Too much. Cool. It's starting to look a lot better. So basically what I did there is, since I'm using Flexbox, I'm letting it determine where it should position everything for me. All I had to do was give it a height, and then it'll calculate how far it should move everything away from each other, depending on like how I positioned it on the page. So I didn't really have to like do much figuring out when it comes to like the height or padding or margin or anything like that. Kind of just did it on its own. So yeah, so that's looking good. As far as the button, I'm kind of really feeling this background, this like curvy background. So I kind of want to stick with that. So I'm gonna try to make the button match the background. Just, you know, again, matching that personality, that style, that same like character. So the button, I am gonna give it some padding because it definitely also needs some space. Let's try on the top and bottom, let's try 12, and then on the sides, let's try 24. Let's see how that looks. Okay, I think that's fine. That looks all right. And as for border radius, let's try 12 pixels. Not curvy enough. feel like it doesn't really fit yet. Get in there. Okay, much better. I think that fits really well. And I hope that you see, like, I feel like a lot of times people ask me, like, how do I know? Like, how do I know what to put in? What measurements do I know? I don't. I have no idea. Like, I'm just literally trying things out. And that's how I always do, like, code CSS when it comes to styling and positioning. I never know. But it's just a matter of, like, trial and error to figure out what it is that makes it look good. And if you remember my accessibility lesson, like this button, it looks good. I think it looks all right, but I'm not really liking the contrast between the black and that blue color. It's better, like we can read it, but I think it can be better. So I'm changing the color of the font to white. But instead of using white, I'm just gonna use my variable. And again, the reason, instead of just using the regular word white, and the reason I'm using my variable is because at any point in the future where I'm like, you know what, I don't like this color anymore, I want to change it, I only have to change it in one place. I don't have to go everywhere to change it. Okay, I like how that looks so much more. I'm not filling the border. There's a border on it, so I'm going to remove it. It's clean. And I know the button doesn't actually do anything, but let's add a pointer to it so it looks like it does something. Wait, backwards. It's cursor. So now we get the hand when we hover. But it doesn't actually do anything. But yeah, that's looking a lot better, I think. Let's, is there anything else that we should do to this? I think that's good for now. How about this this next section, the section that I call the services?
You want to continue on with the same thing with the curved board,
right.
So you want to curve the edges of these boxes.
Cool. And they do have like different curves here, but some of them they're like way different. But yeah, I do want to keep the same like style, and I'll probably start with the same border radius that I gave the button just to see how that looks, to see if it looks good. So let's actually close that. Let's go to services. Just in case we need to look at what the code looks like, I'm gonna open that up too on this side. Right, so all of these three things are called, wait, what is it? Oh, service, right? So, well, each of them actually, I gave each of them a different tag. I don't actually think I need this right now. I can actually just do it in one, and I'll do it in this one since they also, like, they had their individual class names, but they also had a class name for all of them, and I'm just gonna use that one to add the border radius. And what did I add up top there? So I added wait, not this one, on the main section.
38.
36. Wait, is that one of my? Oh, I just made that one up. How come no one told me that? I thought it was in my my little design system here. It's not. But we'll keep it that way. That's fine. Let's try 32. That looks all right. I feel like for the purposes of this, I feel like that's like, it's looking like maybe too curvy, so we'll bring it down. I think that looks much better. A little cleaner. Make the icon bigger. Let's bump that up. I think I could do it even bigger than that. Cool.
Quick question.
Yep.
I also noticed that you see in the service blocks or whatever, I don't know what to call them, but I was looking at the HTML. You didn't declare the titles of the boxes. Like you didn't give it a class name. Would you give it a class name?
What do you mean?
So like if you go back to the website, right?
Services.
You look at like the type because you see the P tag on.
Oh, the P tag.
Yeah, you didn't give it a class name.
I probably forgot. Yeah, actually,
okay.
I definitely forgot for sure.
Right.
Yeah, we got that now. So class name. And like I tried not to use like a methodology here, but the methodology I use still kind of like poured in with the hyphens. I always try to keep my class names like consistent. I use BEM for my class names, so I would definitely recommend checking it out. Or using some sort of like CSS methodology. Oh crap. I'm lost. Okay. Another thing I like to do for me, it makes more sense. I like to write the CSS in the order that it appears on my HTML. So just for me. So service title, I'm gonna bump up the font size. Let's try 48. And while I'm at it, I'm just gonna bump up the font weight. Let's try 700. Way too big. Better. Then what should I do with like the text? Like how should I arrange all this? Should I center it? Should I like leave it left aligned? Like what should I do?
Center.
Center.
Center. I mean, it looks okay. It looks okay. Well, I mean, not the title. I'm talking about like everything. Should everything be centered?
Or definitely left align it.
Yeah. So it's like since it is a lot of text, we should actually keep it left aligned. So instead of center here, I'm actually gonna just comment this out. I think the default is left aligned. Yeah. So the default is left aligned. I'm actually is this getting centered? Align items. I'm gonna comment this one out too. So everything is actually left aligned. So now that it's left aligned, you notice that like we actually need some padding now on these cards, I'll call them, all right, these service cards. But I think one thing that I didn't really mention before, but it is something that I actually like to do a lot. Like we always think about what to adding more, like, oh, what do we still need? And then like, I feel like sometimes we jump into this hole that we just keep adding stuff and realizing that we need more. And like, we forget that like, it's also okay to remove and to take away things. And when you do that, it actually makes it a much easier process depending on what you're doing. So in this case, instead of like going forward with trying to add more padding and trying to make sure that all this text and everything looks good inside of this gray barrier, I'm actually going to see what it looks like if I just remove it, the gray background. And I think that looks good. I'm going to leave it like this. So yeah, so that's just like a quick tip that like, I feel like it's not said enough that it's okay to remove things. And in this case, I removed that gray background and it looks good. I can keep like working on this and like, I can maybe give that a gray color. Anything else I want to do here? This definitely needs help. One thing I'm not really feeling though is this blue background. I feel like it can work, but in this situation, I'm not feeling how it blends in with this curvy background here. So I don't know if anyone noticed, but I actually did add another background in here in the images. So I'm just going to use that instead. So I'm going to open up, what did I call it? Product, CSS. And also the way that I even did this little diagonal background thing, it's actually a cool little trick, linear gradient. I made it go from bottom, from the bottom, wait, top left to, no, top right to bottom left. And basically, so I'm starting at the color white. I'm ending at the color white at 50%. And at 50%, it's a strict start to blue. If I didn't add the percentages, it would actually be like a gradient. It would be a smooth transition from like white to blue. But since I determined where the white ends and where the blue starts, it's like a strict line. It makes it into these cool like backgrounds. And I've seen some people do some really cool stuff with that. I feel like it's a trick that's getting like really popular. So definitely like throw that into your projects to spice it up a bit. But I'm just gonna add that background image that I made to see if it like kind of blends in better with the other background. I don't remember what it's called. What is it? Wait, image. No. There we go. Images, background 3. Cool. Now it's just repeating hella times. So the way I can fix that is I can do background, repeat, no repeat. And now I just need to put it at the bottom. So I'm going to do background position. And I think it's bottom. Yeah, so that works. And I think that flows much, much, much better. So we've already started like making this look so much better. This one obviously has a lot of problems, but I feel like you kind of get the gist of it. It's pretty much going to be like very similar to what I did up here. Just, you know, round the corners to make it match with the rest of the website. You know, remove those descriptions. We don't need them. We know what it is. The only one though that I think it is important to mention that if, like, say if we remove the name, we know the Lonely Cactus, we know that's the name. If we remove price, since there's a $sign there, we know what that is, right? We remove description, like this will be descriptive enough that we'll know. But this one, if we remove the stock, that's a problem. Because now if we remove the label for stock, that number could be anything. So in situations like this, you kind of have to like blend it in together. I wouldn't say leave it like that because that doesn't look all that great. So in this case, what you can do is, let me just go to where so instead of saying stock 4, you can change it to 4 like left in stock or something like that. It's more human readable. It's just better that way, and it flows with the rest. So in that situation, it's important to make that distinction of when to remove the like tag or not. Yeah, and the rest, I guess, is super, like, it's going to be the similar to everything else. Hopefully, I hope you got to see, like, and you learned something and got to see, like, how to actually, like, look through a website and make it better and just, like, trying to, like, pinpoint and determine where we can improve certain in, like, whatever area. Hopefully, you know, you're able to use it for your portfolio or group projects or capstone. I'm expecting some fire capstones. So yeah, so hopefully, you know, you take this knowledge and use it. But I will say though, like a lot of the stuff that I taught y'all, like it took me a while to kind of like pinpoint like what it was that I really wanted to show y'all, because there's just so much that goes along with this, right? Some of the topics and some of the things that I shared with y'all, I kind of simplified it. I either simplified it or there's just way more to it. There's more depth to it. So, you know, I suggest like looking deeper into it if you're interested, if you want to lean more to the UI side, or if you want to be like, you know, creative front end, definitely look into it. And just to give you some more links, I'll update the slides with these links. I don't have them on there, and I'll share it on the channel. But if you want to know where I made like those cool backgrounds, I mean, I didn't actually make them. This made it for me. So this thing just like makes backgrounds for you. It's called getwaves.io. You can like choose your color. And I think it's a super nice touch. You just got to import it. You can check to see how I import it in that project. Like I mentioned before, Codecademy has like a nice class on color design, and it teaches you color theory. So I think it'd be like worth it to check that out. I started it, but I haven't finished it yet. Happy Hues, I think, is a super cool website that it the person basically like set up a bunch of colors on the side, like usually like I think it's 6 colors in total with the background. Yeah. And if you can like you can pick one, and then you'll see like how they like set up the website with it and which colors were used for what. Like this was like this dark black or grayish was only for the stroke. Like the main color is like that light, really light gray. And then you have like the highlight, which is I would assume is like maybe like the primary like color for like the accents, right? And then you have the secondary color and then the tertiary color. And you can kind of just see like in every section how they use the colors. And I think it's super interesting. It has more actual information on color theory and what colors mean, which is also super interesting to get into. Like, for example, like the color red, I don't know if it says it here, but like for us, like Western culture, like color red could mean like love, or maybe sometimes even danger. Somewhere else in another country, it doesn't mean that. So like you got to think about that when you're building websites that are going to be used in other places. So it's really interesting. I highly recommend like reading through all that. And as far as fonts, Google Fonts is king. It is like amazing. It's what I use for everything. And I actually forgot that it compares and it tells you which fonts actually look good. There was a question earlier, like if there was something to compare it, and Google Fonts actually does it really well. So if there's a particular font that I want to look into called Pacific, like I'll look at this one, Pacifico. I can check pairings, and it'll show me like what are the popular pairings with that font, right? So with Pacifico, we got Open Sans, which is like one of my favorites. I'll use it often. Roboto, which is used very often. I think it's the default one in Create React app. And so you can see like which pairings work well together. So there's that. Yes, I'll add all these links to the slides. If I have anything else, I'll add it in as well. But like I said, hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you're able to take it and apply it into your websites. Y'all can reach out to me with any more questions. If you need some advice on a website you're building, happy to give it. But yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoyed.
Can you just go over how you go about setting up your design structure and how you use the root variable?
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if there's a better example that I have. So when it comes to like, let me see if I have a better example. But yeah, I like when it comes to like CSS, I mean, it's not much setting up that I do for it. Well, one, I don't actually really write CSS. I write Sass, which is like sassy CSS, if like people like to call it, which is basically CSS, but it looks a little different. But let me see how I set it up in one of my other projects. So since I use Sass, I make sure to have like different pages for every component. So imagine this being like just a CSS page for either every page or every component, sometimes both. Yeah, and then I always keep a like base CSS. I guess in this example, that would have been my app CSS. You can use the app CSS, it's fine. But when I'm writing Sass, I like to use a base CSS. And this is where I keep everything that I need. So if you see, these are the colors that I'm currently using on this website. These are the 2 fonts that I have that I'm importing through the index.html. And I always forget how to write this. So that's why I save it to a variable. So I don't have to remember this part. I just need to remember this part, F primary. And these variables look different because it is Sass. I know you asked me about root, but this is going to look a little different. But basically, it's basically the same thing. And then any like default values that I just like adding in every project, I'll also leave it in the base file. So for example, Create React App does a good job of like removing the default padding and margin and all that. But I like to add it just in case. I like to use a border box sizing. So I make sure to add it to the HTML. And then this one right here, just make sure to add it to every single element on the page. This is probably not the best way of doing it, but it works. And then anything that I want to add to the body, I also add it in here in this base CSS. So that's pretty much like how I go about setting up everything. I have one main page that I kind of just add all my variables. If I'm using CSS, I'll add the root in here. I'll add any basic default or like positioning or anything that I want to add in here. Anything for the body, I'll add in here. But anything that's specific to a section, a component, does not go in here. That all goes in its own component, in its own page. Yeah, so that's pretty much like the setting up that I do. If I'm using React, then, I mean, I don't know how y'all do it, but like, same thing, like if I'm using regular CSS, everything has its own page and it's imported into that specific component. I don't add everything to one page. It can get really confusing. Just make sure it's clean and organized. And why did that app open up? I don't know. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are there any other questions or
I have
comments?
a question.
Yep.
It's more of like an advice question. So I would say, like, what advice do you have for someone who wants to like freelance with UX UI, but also like, I guess like for me personally, when you were talking about the like certain companies and like the certain flow of things. So like if you would be working for like a financial company, of course, it would be more serious. So like for someone like me who wanted to like freelance and like a wide range, like what advice would you give in order to be able to like also have or like build, I guess like.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done freelance, and I don't plan on doing it as far as now. But I think, you know, when it comes to like freelancing, like you can potentially work on so many different types of websites. I think one thing is just to try making different kinds of websites, or even like, you don't even have to come up with them yourself. Like, I don't know, go on Facebook or something and like try to replicate it. Go on like Airbnb and try to like replicate it yourself to see, like, you kind of get that feel for like different website designs. Like that's kind of like what I did too. Like I would look at a website that I like super inspired me, that I really like, and I try to replicate it. Well, either I try to replicate it, or I try to like take parts of that website and apply it to my own. And I feel like I learned a lot like that. And yeah, and I think one thing, like, while it isn't absolutely necessary, I think having projects on your portfolio is important, especially if you want to freelance. Like, as far as like recently, like I've gotten some interviews and I'm interviewing with some companies, and I'm pretty sure it was my portfolio that did it, because the projects on there, like I spent some time on it. They look good. They're not perfect, but like, or they're not all finished. But it does catch their eye when you have a nice portfolio with a good set of projects and like a good range of like projects, right? Like a full stack one that's like really good with the like maybe animations and transitions. But just try to hit as much as you can to just kind of like, I don't know, like I don't want to say be a jack of all trades, but like I feel like you kind of do. But and it's weird. Like I would say, like, you know, learn a little bit about a lot, but you really need to find out what it is that you want to specialize in.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Let me move this one over here.
I have one thing.
Yep.
I think we need to create some type of petition to make these classes like more available or more often. And I nominate you to give these classes. So
yeah, well, thank you.
Get that done, because I would think that this is extremely important for us. So,
yeah, it's kind of hard. Like I do really think it should be more in the curriculum, but at the same time, there's already so much that we need to learn if we really want to be full stack developers, right? I mean, it's kind of hard. Like there are a lot of people, so I think it's really, at the end of the day, it's up to like ourselves to like really dive into what we want. Right? I realized early that the back end, well, it's alright. Like I can do it, but like it's not what I enjoy. I actually think the front end is harder. But it is, to me, it is more creative. It's more of a challenge and it's fun. I like writing CSS. I like styling things. So I knew pretty early on that that's what I wanted to do. So all my studies have leaned towards that side. So it is like a lot of like figuring out what it is that you want to do. If that's what it is, you got to put in the work. But yeah, like hopefully
it's important. This lesson kind of like definitely tilted like the scale for me. So
I'm glad. Yeah, hopefully it can be integrated more into the curriculum.
Yeah, we get DSA like every other Tuesday or something like that. So maybe,
well, that's important too. That's important for interviews. I'll be honest, I don't really enjoy that as much, but it is really important for the interview process.
Every other Monday, Carlos, we need you to get together. Los for Prez.
Appreciate it. Thank you.